Puss is about as simplistic as it gets for a game. You only move with your mouse, the graphics are solid or flashy colors consisting of squares and rectangles, with art assets sprinkled throughout as you navigate a pixel cat through a series of don't-touch-the-sides mazes. At the core, that's all you do, but there's so much more beyond the surface that these trippy visuals and cute cats won't immediately tell you. There's more than enough weirdness and things to break your brain here, but the game's beyond simplistic gameplay and intense frustrations might make this a hard sell to anyone that isn't into the WTF factor. But that's not all you want to hear, is it? While there are reasons I won't be able to spoil everything that I'll make apparent, just being surprised by the onslaught of insane visuals is enough for me to consider the game possibly ruined otherwise. So if what little you see here has you intrigued, maybe give it a whirl before I move on. Otherwise, I'll go into detail and we can get started on this perfectly normal, charming game about kitties. This game came out in like, what, August? Maybe earlier? Well, my first exposure to this game was Mega G-Wolf, who was personally responsible for at least 24% of my impulse game purchases. It was just too weird for me not to play, but therein lies the issue that it's weird. Really, really weird. And that alone might easily put off anyone. G only seemed to give the game one playthrough video and completed like a stage, so while I've seen more of the game in a technical sense, there's not much else to be seen overall. Well, maybe. Who knows? Perhaps after collecting the keys, the game becomes a Metroidvania or something. Like that would ever happen. Boy, it's kinda tough to judge the look of this game because it's something. Are these good graphics? Are they bad? What am I even looking at half the time? The game labels itself as a psychedelic horror for a reason. Prepare yourself for an onslaught of clip art, jarring animations, disturbing visuals, 80s aesthetic, in every color ever all the time. There's a flashing lights and colors warning on this game and video for a reason. I'm sorry, but we're gonna have to put our bitrate down. It's a callback, see? To something I did 2 months ago. If you're not distracted to some rather disturbing and baffling images or thrown into an epileptic fit by them, you'll find the base of the game consists of mazes made of colored rectangles. One of the more difficult parts of the whole thing is that it's shockingly hard to tell what your path is a lot of the time. The color and the rules of the maze will end up changing from level to level. And a color that you could walk on in Area A will then kill you in Area B. I swear I've even seen mazes that had the exact same layout in another maze, but then having a completely different and occasionally much harder to see color scheme. What's safe to move on and what isn't safe is almost never completely clear on your first time through a map. A corruption mechanic permeates the game via pixelated glitches, and accompanying that glitch distortion, hitting a wall will also throw the entire screen and your speakers into a screeching fit. You know that infamous Flash maze game or Genius Test or whatever BS framework they gave for an excuse to give you a jump scare? That's basically this game. Instead of flashing Reagan's possessed form on screen with a screech, you just jump scare yourself by hitting a wall and getting this god-awful distortion jarring sound to go with it. It's more like a sadistic version of that board game Operation.
Don't touch the sides!
In fact, such a jarring visual effect and blast of sound usually has me scrambling to figure out what I did wrong, overcorrecting my path and losing a life because of it. Of which you start with 9 because, of course you do. This game's soundtrack is... Jesus Christ. Like, if you can think of anything that you would put alongside with these visuals, you're probably right and still wrong. There is no cohesion to this thing whatsoever, with some of these songs being like 20-second loops, and others being nearly 5 minutes for something that you only hear about 10 to 30 seconds of. I've heard droning moans, drainage pipes, and some guy babbling in German. Nothing about this game makes any sense, and the soundtrack is just about the most perfect thing to accompany it. Hell, even the track names have bafflingly weird titles like Politically Correct Orgy and Disemboweled Sunset. The horror goes far beyond what you can see, and the entire game is set up to mindfuck you. Even the basics of the gameplay seem all designed to mess with your head, and it fucking works. After the opening live-action scene of a cat going into a TV screen, you start the game proper with a tutorial. And by tutorial I mean showing you how to grab and drag the cat icon, because none of these levels are exactly tutorial easy. Sort out the mazes and where you need to go and what to avoid to reach the goal, don't touch the sides if you can tell where they are half the time, and keep yourself enough lives to reach the end. Keep in mind, some of these mazes have alternate paths and shortcuts that will make clearing them quicker in a risk-reward manner. If you manage to get through it, the Cerberus boss fight will definitely teach you that this game is not fucking around. Yeah, the Hound of Hell would be a chihuahua, wouldn't it? Oh, you know how I said click and drag the move right? It's kind of a pain in the wrist for long play sessions, and I was always wishing there was some option to just move the cat by holding and moving the mouse without having to click drag. There is. I could have just clicked on the cat once and moved the mouse around to control it in that exact same manner, and I feel real stupid for having literally figured that out 2 days ago. It's not all maze-like movement, as the devs proudly tote what they refer to as avoid-em-up gameplay, which, while making so little sense I find the phrase utterly charming and perfect, is basically a way to describe their game as a bullet hell that you can't defend yourself in. Well, not always. Bosses especially reach the point of how the hell am I supposed to do this ludicrous, taking dozens of tries and having to best a gauntlet of 10 mazes with every attempt at them. It's an investment in patience. In fact, patience is going to be a pretty heavy requirement for a lot of this game. Some of these maps will require you to move at this glacial pace and hope that a right cycle will go by, while others require instant cheap shot reaction timing, sometimes on the same map. The game is a fantastic salt generator, as I'll go from calm and triumphant satisfaction from completing a map, to screaming obscenities at my screen for dying 3 pixels from the exit because my cat's ear brushed against a gradient. There's some mazes that are literally impossible for me to complete, which is a good time to mention that I didn't complete this game yet. Not for lack of trying. Make of that what you will. In fact, one of the staples of the bullet hell, a very small and clearly defined hitbox, isn't really here. In fact, inconsistencies seem very constant in this game. Some are intentional and others just illogical. I've seen map layouts change completely from one section to another depending on where you go, even when replaying them, and sometimes they don't. While that's certainly intentional, I've even had the same map played dozens of times suddenly just be painfully difficult to clear, despite never changing tactics on previous runs, and not changing in any way, shape, or form how it needs to be solved. Something about this game just doesn't seem to work consistently, and it just builds into my frustrations and even wanting to continue. Mazes, especially ones with a lot of constant or long vertical and horizontal movements, are especially hellish if you don't have your mouse sensitivity set to the molecular level, or a mouse pad the size of a dining room table. Bosses are interesting, long, and complex battles that change up rules slightly, whether you're fighting angels to unlock a slot machine so you can roll 777s and free Jesus Christ, shooting the uterus of the Illuminati on the back of a unicorn, getting 3-sided cat heads to run over spikes, running from a giant crawfish in a dress while dodging torpedoes, or rescuing a naked Icarus from a giant laser-eyed statue of Michelangelo's David. Did I mention this game is weird yet? I'm not sure if I got around to that. You're expected to do this all within 9 lives, and death is going to be very common. You can earn a lot more of these lives by completing levels as efficiently as possible and gaining points depending on your performance. You can get anywhere between nothing and a decent handful of lives between each level, giving skilled players the chance to head in with 15 to 20 or more, making the boss gauntlets much more likely to succeed, but there's still a good chance you'll lose them all in those fights anyhow. In fact, there is even a side mechanic that also seems kinda random, where losing all of your lives will flash Baphomet on the screen and change the color and corruption levels of the mazes, giving you just a few more chances to succeed. Lose all of those, though? Sorry, what was that? What did you... How many what? That's a week. Why didn't you just say a week? If you're braving this nightmare yourself, you have several choices to change the look of your cat in the options menu, and some of them are interesting. I kept it basic though. Otherwise, if you want some frustrating but maybe next time levels of gameplay with an occult demonic theme, weird request to have, but here you go. My only real tip for this game, if you're having too much trouble, just give it a good break and come back later. I managed to beat that mothership boss on my first try after coming back to it only several weeks later from my last playthrough just to gather some footage from this video, so clear head might help out. Otherwise, Puss gets a caution minus from me. While I enjoy the almost masochistic thrill of running these gauntlets, the loud noises, inconsistent feel, and frustrating gameplay, and the strange everything else is not something that I can easily recommend for people to play. It's just too strange of a game on its own, and the gimmick can wear thin. Those of you who want to play this game based on what I've showed you and said, probably already are. And if you think it's too much for you to deal with, it probably is. I appreciate you making the stop, and I hope to see you on the next one. So, what did you think of Puss? Still recovering from the headache and/or seizure induced by the visuals, or was it just an easy baby game? Dear God, John, you're just bad at this, why don't you play better, your review sucks. In any case, head to the comments with your feedback, and I'll check them out for at least a little while. I've got way too many scripts in like half-complete status. I should probably focus on something or just go back to the gym already. Follow me on Twitter, because Lord knows YouTube isn't going to tell you when a new video is released. Pick your poison in the cesspool by choosing @ChaosD1 for personal touch, or @IndieStop for robotic, auto-generated, or heavily marketed stream and video announcements. You can head over to twitch.tv/ChaosD1 for the occasional live stream, if the feeling strikes, and maybe I'll actually be on there this week, as I desperately try to figure out what the hell I'm going to be playing for that day. Oh yeah, there's that one thing. Also, if you might have noticed, I'm doing something different on this card from now on. If there's any requests in the current queue, they will be listed here, so you know what's coming eventually. Not coming next, but definitely in the works. And this will remain whether or not that requester is an active patron until the video is complete, so look forward to those. If you also like to help support the show, any amount is appreciated by heading over to patreon.com/chaosd1 to join my ever-chaotic number of patrons, with the lowest tier at only $1 a month, granting you access to announcements and polls, and later tiers giving you early access to videos, as well as the highest tiers having the ability to place a request into the queue. So without further ado, let's get into shouting out this month's raid leader and higher supporters: Neander, Nate McPherson, Arthur D. Gonzalez Martin, Kaismay, Sonic Rose, and A. Smith. Thanks again so much for watching and supporting, and I hope to see you all in the next one.